Good morning, students of class 10th. I hope that you have been watching the previous videos. And now, in today's video, we will be discussing about the challenges that are faced by the political parties. Okay, as in the previous video, we have already discussed about the state parties and the national parties, right? We have discussed about some of the national parties like BJP, your CPIM, Congress, and all the other national parties, and we have also discussed about the state parties. Okay, so in today's video lecture, we are going to discuss about the challenges to the political parties, and again I am repeating that with your videos you should also have your books. Okay, if you are not going to open your books with the video, then you will not be able to understand the topic. So I would like that all the students who are watching this video should open their NCERT books, right? Because I am also teaching according to the NCERT books, and with that only you will be able to develop a better understanding. Okay, so let us discuss the topic, the challenges of political parties, right? That what are the challenges that the political parties face. Okay, so let us discuss about the challenges that are being faced by the political parties. Okay, so let us start. We have seen how crucial political parties are for working of democracy. Since parties are the most visible face of democracy, it is natural that people blame parties for whatever is wrong with the working of democracy, right? As in the normal course of business also, or in the normal course of life, you would have heard or you would have yourself blamed the political parties if the democracy is not working properly, right? That sometimes when there is any wrongdoing by the government, then the political parties are blamed. Sometimes even when there is no fault of the government, then also the political parties are blamed. So here it is written in your books that it is natural that people blame political parties for whatever is wrong with the working of democracy. All over the world, people express strong dissatisfaction with the failure of political parties to perform their functions well. Right, as we all know that sometimes the political parties are not able to perform their functions well, whether it is the ruling party or the opposition party, and at every point of time they are blamed for the things that they have done. They should be blamed for that, but many a times they are also blamed for the purposes or for the incidents for which they are not responsible. Okay, so this is the case in our country too, right? So the political parties face a lot of problems, and the political parties are blamed for the mistakes that they have done. Okay, they should be blamed, but many a times it is also seen that the political parties are blamed for the reasons or for the incidents that were out of their hands or for which they are not responsible, but for that also they are blamed. This is the case in our country too. Popular dissatisfaction and criticism has focused on four problem areas in the working of political parties. Political parties need to face and overcome these challenges in order to remain effective instruments of democracy, right? So the political parties have to face a lot of challenges as they are working in a democracy, and while the political parties are working in a democracy, it is their moral duty that they should remain in the democracy. They should even hear their criticism, right? If somebody is criticizing the government, then also the political party will have to hear that, and as they are the effective instruments of the democracy, so they have their challenges. Okay, so the first challenge which is discussed in your books is the first challenge is lack of internal democracy. So the first challenge here is that there is lack of internal democracy in the parties. In the political parties, many political parties have no or little democracy, the internal democracy within them. So let us discuss that. All over the world, there is a tendency in the political parties towards the concentration of power in one or few leaders at the top. Parties do not keep their membership registers, do not hold organizational meetings, and do not conduct internal elections regularly. Ordinary members of the party do not get sufficient information on what happens inside the party. They do not have the means or to connections needed to influence the decisions. As a result, the leaders assume great power to make decisions in the name of the party. Since one or few leaders exercise paramount power in the party, those who disagree with the leadership find it difficult to continue in the party. Okay, so here it is written in a book that in political parties, most of the decisions are taken by the top leadership, the people who are sitting at the top of the party, whether they are the president of the party or they are the Mahasachiv that we call in Hindi. I don't know the English word for that, but either they are the president of the party or they are the chief minister of this of any state and that party is in the ruling party, or they are a big face of the party. So all those leaders who are at the top of the party are the persons who are making the decisions, and the decision made by those person are known as the decision made by the political party. Okay, and in real sense that should not be the case, because when we talk about political parties, the political parties are formed to strengthen democracy. Okay, and if there is no democracy within the political parties themselves, so how can they strengthen the democracy of the country? I hope you are able to understand what I'm trying to say. That if the political parties are not having good democratic setup within themselves, then the political parties will not be able to strengthen the democracy within the country. Right. So to strengthen the democracy within the country, it is very important for those political parties who say that they are strengthening the democracy of the country, that they should also practice democracy, the internal democracy within themselves. So the most important word is the internal democracy here, that the political parties should exercise internal democracy. Okay, the next topic, the next thing is the second challenge of dynastic succession is related to first one. Right, now the second challenge is of dynasty, the dynastic succession. Dynastic succession. Now let us understand that what is the meaning of the word dynastic succession. It is practiced in India also and many other countries of the world. Okay, so what is dynastic succession? Let us understand that first of all what was monarchy and what is democracy. Monarchy was a system in which there was dynasty rule, that if there is a person who is a king, then his son will become the next king. Then after that, his son will become the next king, and that will be the course of action. In democracy, we adopted democracy because democracy is a better way of representing the people, and that there should be people's rule, right? But if there is a political party which is in power for a long time, and that political party adopts its leader or chooses its leader from the dynastic point of view, then that political party will not be giving or strengthening the support to democracy, right? So the second point is your dynastic succession, that the succession of the dynasties, the succession of the dynasty, right? Like in today's scenario, I would like to give you the example of a political party which is very the oldest political party from in India currently, and we are talking about INC, the Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress, as I have already told you in class when the classes were offline, that Indian National Congress was established in the year 1885, right? It was established in 1885. Later on, after independence, Mr. it was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru who became the first Prime Minister of the country, and he was the leader of Congress, right? He was a big face of Congress. Now, after 1950, we can say that in 1950 he became the Prime Minister, right? It was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. After Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who became the Prime Minister? It was Shri Shastri ji, Lal Bahadur Shastri. And after Lal Bahadur Shastri, the Prime Minister was Srimati Indira Gandhi, right? When Indira Gandhi died, the Prime Minister of India was, who became the Prime Minister of India? It was Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. So after Indira Gandhi, I hope you are able to understand the trend. Indira Gandhi was the daughter of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, first PM of India. Okay, so Indira Gandhi became the India President, and she was also the India Prime Minister, not President. She became the Prime Minister of India, and she was also the President of Congress Party. Now after her death, it was Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. Before her death, Rajiv Gandhi was not actively participating in the politics. Before her death, Rajiv Gandhi was not actively participating in politics, but after her death, he became the Prime Minister of India just because he was a son. Now you can see that there is a dynastic rule, right? And after the death of Rajiv Gandhi, when we talk about the internal politics of Congress, the Indira Gandhi was the big face, then it was Rajiv Gandhi, and after Rajiv Gandhi, his wife Srimati Sonia Gandhi became the big face of Congress, and she was Sonia Gandhi. And after Sonia Gandhi, it was his son Rahul Gandhi who became the president of the Congress party. And after Rahul Gandhi, there is no party president till now, but this is the hierarchy. Now this is dynastic succession, right? Because no other person who is outside the Nehru Gandhi family is the president of the Congress from a long time, right? So this is dynastic succession. The second challenge of dynastic succession is related to the first one. Since most political parties do not practice open and transparent procedure of their functioning, there are very few ways for an ordinary worker to rise on the top in a party. That an ordinary worker cannot rise to the top of the party unless and until he or she is the son or daughter of any established political leader, right? It happens in India also and in other countries also. Those who happen to be the leader are in a position of unfair advantage to favor people close to them or even their family members, that their family members became the party president or they become a big leader in the party themselves. Okay, those who happen to be leaders in a position of unfair advantage to favor people close to them or even their family members. In many parties, top positions are always controlled by the members of one family. Like I told you that in Indian National Congress, the top leadership is always from the Gandhi family after the independence. Okay, this is unfair to other members of that party because it is unfair, as we can see. This is also bad for democracy since people who do not have adequate experience or popular support come to occupy position of power. This tendency is present in some measure all over the world, including in some of the older democracies. Right. So this is the reason that why it is bad for the democracy also, that the people who are not experienced, Rahul Gandhi, or we can say in the case of Rajiv Gandhi was totally inexperienced before the death of her mother, death of his mother. Right, before that Rajiv Gandhi was just a pilot, and just because he was having the Gandhi surname, he was made the prime minister of the country. Okay, and he was also the person who was made the president of the national Indian National Congress, and after that it was Sonia Gandhi, his wife, that she was also not having a popular support in India, but then also she was made the party president of the biggest party of that time. And after that it is Rahul Gandhi, the person who don't have any experience, is sitting on the top of the India's oldest party. Okay, so this is the dynastic succession, that it should not take place in India. Now, the third challenge is about the growing role of money and muscle power. The next is the growing role of money and muscle power. Right? Money and muscle power. Now, money also plays an important role in the choosing of the government in the power, whether it is for state elections or it is for the Lok Sabha elections, the national election, general elections. Especially during elections, since parties are focused only on winning the elections, they tend to use shortcuts to win elections. They tend to nominate those candidates who have or can raise lots of money. Those candidates who have big money power, or they are big industrialists, are able to back those political parties with tons and tons of money, right? And with that money, the parties are able to use them for the election campaigning, for their advertisement, and for the promotion, party promotion. And when this happens, the political parties are the political parties give their constituency tickets to those the people who are in power. So they tend to nominate those candidates who have or can raise lots of money. Rich people can, and companies who give funds to the parties tend to have influence on the political policies and decisions of the party. In some cases, parties support criminals who can win elections, and that is why many times those people who are having a criminal record with them, even those people get a ticket in the constituency elections. Okay. In some cases, parties support criminals who can win elections. Democrat Democrats all over the world are worried about increasing role of rich people and big companies in democratic politics. So when these companies or these big people, the rich people, when they give money to the political parties, they try to influence the policies that are made by the political parties. Okay, and when they try to influence those policies, then in that case the democracy comes in danger. Okay. The fourth challenge is that very often parties do not seem to offer a meaningful choice to the voters. And the fourth problem is that the parties are not able to give a meaningful choice to the voters. That voters are very confused that from the whom they should choose, because many times voters feel that all the political parties or the candidates of the political parties are same, they all are corrupt, and many a times the voters face a problem. It is written, in order to offer meaningful choices, party must be significantly different. In recent years, there has been a decline in the ideological differences among parties in most part of the world. For example, the difference between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in Britain is very little, right? That the ideological difference is not very big between the parties, so the voters get confused that from which party they should choose, right? So example is given in your books of the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in Britain, because their ideology is very similar, so the voters get confused, right? They agree on more fundamental aspects but differ only in details on how policies are to be framed and implemented. Their ideologies are somewhat the same, but they just differ on the front that the how the policy should be framed. Okay. Those who want really different policies have no option available to them. Sometimes people cannot even elect very different leader either, because the same set of leaders keep shifting from one party to another. Okay. So students, this was the topic, that what are the challenges that are faced by the political parties. In the next video, we will be discussing that how the political parties can be reformed. Okay, so we will meet in the next video with a new topic. Till then, stay at your homes and stay safe. Thank you.